There are football clubs that win trophies. There are clubs that produce legendary players. And then there's Real Madrid, a club that has somehow turned winning the biggest games in football into part of its identity. But here's the strange part. Real Madrid wasn't always the giant we know today. It had to become one. And the story of how it happened is not simply about buying the best players or having the most money. It starts with a club that discovered something incredibly powerful about football. Winning once makes you successful. Winning again and again makes people expect you to win. And eventually, that expectation becomes part of the club itself. So how did Real Madrid build that reputation? To understand it, we have to go back to the beginning. Real Madrid was founded in 1902, when football in Spain was still developing. For decades, it was a major Spanish club, but it wasn't yet the global superpower we recognize today. Then came one of the most important moments in the club's history. In 1953, Real Madrid signed Alfredo Di Stéfano. And this wasn't just another transfer. Di Stéfano became the central figure of a team that would completely change European football. He could score, he could create chances, he could move around the pitch, and he could influence almost every part of the game. But the timing mattered just as much as the player, because European club football was about to become much bigger. In 1955, European clubs began competing in what was then called the European Cup. The idea was simple. Take the best clubs from different countries and make them play each other. And Real Madrid dominated it. They won the first 5 European Cups from 1956 through 1960. Think about that. The competition had barely started, and Real Madrid was already establishing itself as the club to beat.
That created something more important than 5 trophies.
It created a reputation. Europe learned that Real Madrid belonged on the biggest stage. And once that reputation existed, it became easier for the club to attract great players. This is the first big secret behind Real Madrid's rise. Success creates more opportunities for success. The trophies attract attention. The attention attracts players. The players help produce more trophies. And the cycle continues. But Real Madrid didn't just rely on one golden generation. That would have made the club famous. It wouldn't have made it enormous. The real achievement was continuing to rebuild. Different generations came and went. Different managers arrived. Different stars became famous. But the club kept returning to the same target, winning the biggest competitions. And this is where the Champions League became especially important. The European Cup eventually became the UEFA Champions League, the competition that brings Europe's elite clubs together. Winning your domestic league proves you are the best team in your country over an entire season. Winning the Champions League means surviving against some of the best teams in Europe. And Real Madrid became unusually good at doing exactly that. The club won again in 1966. Then it had a much longer wait for its next European title. And that part of the story is important. Because Real Madrid wasn't continuously winning every year. There were periods when other clubs dominated, but the club never lost the idea that European success was central to its identity. Then, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, another transformation began. Real Madrid started assembling a team filled with global superstars. Players like Luis Figo, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo Nazario, and David Beckham became part of what became known as the Galácticos era. The idea was almost ridiculously simple. If football's biggest stars were available, Real Madrid wanted them. And there was more to this strategy than football. These players brought attention. They brought fans, they brought commercial value, they made Real Madrid one of the most recognizable sports brands on the planet. But there was a problem. Having the biggest names doesn't automatically create the best team. Football is annoyingly resistant to celebrity. You still have to defend. You still have to run. You still have to fit players together. And for a while, Real Madrid discovered that lesson the hard way. The Galácticos could sell shirts and fill stadiums. But collecting superstars wasn't enough to guarantee European domination. So the club evolved again. And this time, the formula became more balanced. Instead of simply collecting famous names, Real Madrid combined superstar players with excellent recruitment, youth development, squad depth, and experienced leaders. And eventually, that produced another extraordinary era. Cristiano Ronaldo arrived in 2009. He became one of the greatest goal scorers in football history. Alongside players such as Sergio Ramos, Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Marcelo, and Karim Benzema, Real Madrid built one of the strongest teams of the modern era. And then came the Champions League. In 2014, Real Madrid finally won the competition again after a 12-year wait. But that was only the beginning. From 2016 to 2018, Real Madrid won the Champions League 3 seasons in a row. 3. In modern football, where elite clubs are separated by tiny margins, doing that is almost absurd. And it changed the club's reputation again. Real Madrid wasn't simply a club that had won European trophies decades ago. It was still doing it. Different players, different managers, different generations. Same competition, same expectation, and then came another important lesson. Cristiano Ronaldo left in 2018. Zidane eventually left too. The squad began to change. Some people expected the end of the era. Instead, Real Madrid rebuilt again. Vinicius Jr. became a major attacking player. Federico Valverde developed into an important midfielder. Eduardo Camavinga and other young players were brought into the squad. And veterans, such as Luka Modric, continued, providing experience. Then in June 2024, Real Madrid won the Champions League again. That was the club's 15th European Cup or Champions League title. And that number matters, because no other club has won the competition as many times. But here's the part that makes Real Madrid different. The number itself isn't the whole story. It's the pattern. Di Stéfano's generation, the 1960s, the Galácticos, the Ronaldo era, the modern generation, different decades, different teams, different football. And somehow, the same club keeps finding its way back to the top. That's why saying Real Madrid became the biggest club simply because it has the most trophies misses something important. Trophies are the result. The deeper advantage is the culture built around them. A young player joining Real Madrid isn't just joining a successful team. They're joining a club where European success is part of the expectation. A manager isn't simply trying to have a good season. They're expected to compete for the biggest trophies. And when a club has spent generations treating the Champions League as its natural territory, that expectation can become incredibly powerful. It can also explain one of the strangest things about watching Real Madrid. Sometimes they don't look like the better team. They can be dominated for long periods. They can look close to elimination. And then one moment changes everything. A goal, a comeback, a late winner. Suddenly the team that looked finished is celebrating. People call it mentality. And while mentality isn't magic, it does come from somewhere. Players who have watched the club repeatedly survive huge European nights learn that a match isn't over simply because things look bad. The history becomes part of the environment. The fans expect a comeback. The players believe one is possible. The opponent knows it too. And suddenly, history is influencing a match that hasn't happened before. That's the real evolution of Real Madrid. It started with trophies. The trophies created prestige. Prestige attracted players. Great players created more trophies. More trophies created even greater expectations. And those expectations helped the club keep attracting talent, attention, and investment. It's a cycle. And Real Madrid has been running that cycle for more than a century. So did Real Madrid become football's biggest club because it had the best players? Not exactly. Because plenty of clubs have had incredible players. Did it become the biggest because it had the most money? Money certainly helped. But money alone doesn't guarantee Champions League titles. The real answer is that Real Madrid combined history, trophies, superstar players, global popularity, recruitment, financial power, and, perhaps most importantly, a culture built around winning the biggest games. The club didn't just collect success. It turned success into an identity. And once that happens, every new generation inherits the pressure to continue it. That's why Real Madrid isn't simply famous for winning. It's famous for expecting to win. And that difference is enormous. So the next time you hear someone call Real Madrid the biggest club in football, you won't just think about the trophy cabinet. You'll understand how that trophy cabinet helped build a reputation, how that reputation attracted generations of talent, and how those generations kept adding to the same story. The game hasn't changed. You have. Subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content. It means a lot.